Hey guys, my name's Abby, and today I'm going to be taking you along as I transform this mid-century modern dresser that I probably overpaid for. It cost $70 and it was in pretty rough shape, as you can see from the finish on the top, but I knew I could fix it. I start off every piece by cleaning it with Crud Cutter. This is just a reusable bottle so that I can buy the big jugs of Crud Cutter and save a little money. This product is excellent at degreasing your surface to prepare it for painting. During the cleaning process, I always remove the hardware to make sure I'm able to clean behind it. In this case, there were like 2 pieces of hardware even on this dresser. I always make sure to remove the drawers so that I'm able to clean it inside and out really well. And I could tell that this old dark finish was going to be a bleeder, so I went ahead and put my gloves on to clean it. Whenever you're cleaning an old piece like this and you can see the dark finish on your rags and cleaning supplies, this is a good sign that it's probably going to bleed through the paint too. So we're going to use a stain blocking primer. But before we get to primer, we have quite a bit of work to do. I rinsed off the Crud Cutter with water and then dried the piece down thoroughly. Next, I unscrewed the old base and knocked it off so that I could add it to my cemetery of old bases. Next, I used some tape to mark off where I wanted to cut the side of the dresser with my circular saw. And you can see the tape helps to get a clean cut. I went ahead and cleaned the dust bunnies under the dresser, and I was ready to measure and build my new base. I have a full tutorial of how to build this base linked in the description below. Adding these legs really sells my dressers quicker and makes them much more desirable. On this piece, I decided to go with Minwax Walnut Stain to finish the base, and it really highlighted that grain. At this point, it was the end of the day and I was exhausted, so I used my wood filler in the most sloppy way possible. I basically slathered it on all the imperfections, not worrying too much because I knew it would dry overnight and this stuff sands really easily. But looking back, it's quite hilarious the things you do when you're tired at the end of the day. And here's a look at the new base. I always like to attach it before painting my piece so that I'm not dragging the new finish all over the floor. The next day, once the wood filler was dry, I pulled out my Bosch orbital sander to smooth it down with 220 grit. I have my sander taped up to a shop vac just so that it helps eliminate a lot of the dust in the air. Here I'm basically just moving in steady motions until I can feel that the surface is completely smooth. If you can feel any texture on the surface, you will likely see it through paint. So just try to be really thorough on this step, but you can always come back and touch it up if you need to. I like to prop up my piece with some old cans just because I haven't sealed the base yet and I want to protect it from the dirt. And I just use some masking tape to make sure I don't get any overspray on the base. It was taking forever to sand all this wood filler, so I dropped my sandpaper grit down to a 120, which is more coarse. And once I got the bulk of it off, I went back up to a 220 grit to make it really smooth and scuff sand everything else. Lightly sanding the old finish helps the new paint to adhere. And it also just ensures that you have a really uniform surface. To get in all the tiny crevices, I just fold my sandpaper in half and do it by hand. At this stage, I like to lightly sand the drawer tracks and anywhere that wood slides on wood. This is going to make sure the drawers are functioning really nice. It also just improves the experience when you open up the drawer to a nice, smooth, and clean dresser. Which is why I also make sure to vacuum out the inside. You never want somebody questioning your work because they took the drawers out and it looks just dirty and unprofessional. Next, I wipe back all the extra dust from sanding before we go in and prime. The drawers are inset on this dresser, so it'll be fine to spray it with them in. I typically use Bin Shellac Primer because it's a great stain blocker, but today I tried out the Synthetic Shellac Primer by Sherwin-Williams. This one is $8 versus $20 a can. And even though my application method here is absolutely terrible, it did a great job at stain blocking, and I'm quite impressed. I wasn't too concerned with my primer application because I always go back and sand it smooth anyways. I like to build up my sandpaper grit, so after the first coat, I sanded with 220, and then I did a second coat of primer and sanded with 320. Make sure to wipe back the dust between each and every coat. This was my first time using the Wagner Flexio 3500, as well as my first time spraying Melange paint. I absolutely love brushing and rolling this paint, so I know it's going to be good. This paint has a built-in top coat, so make sure to stir it and not shake it to avoid bubbles. Always strain your paint when spraying because you want to make sure there's no clumps to cause clogs. I diluted the paint with about 20% water, and I wish I had done a little bit less. This sprayer has a lot of really nice adjustment options, and I think I could have got away with a thicker paint. I made sure it was nice and stirred up, and then I went ahead and attached my spray gun to the turbine. This was my first time using the sprayer, and as you can see, I have my flow set a little bit too low. You see me get a bit of stripiness on the first coat because I wasn't going slow and steady. I'm used to a much different sprayer. You need to make sure you're overlapping by 50% so you don't get streaks. And if you forget to click the turbine on, this is what's going to happen. It created a nice drippy mess that I had to sand off later. This is how your spray pattern should not look, and then once I adjusted my settings, this is how it should look. Nice and even coverage. I sealed off the nozzle with a plastic baggie in between coats. It took about 2 hours to dry, and then I smoothed everything out with 400 grit sandpaper. The second coat, I was getting the hang of things, and it started to look really nice. Melange paint has a really nice satin and durable sheen. If you're interested in trying it out, use code ABBY10 for a discount. For the final coat, I decided to take the drawers out so that I could cover up all the overspray from the previous finish. So it was a bit of extra work to tape everything off, but I think the end result was worth it. I turned my nozzle diagonal, which makes it spray in a fine little circle so I could spray all these little details. I'm extremely impressed with the fine finish that this sprayer gave and how little paint it actually used. And to top it off, this sprayer only took 2 minutes and 30 seconds to clean. It was super easy because the turbine detaches. And now for the fun part, to remove the tape. I really think this made such a big difference by getting the little details on the inside. I used this one coat water-based polyurethane to protect the base, but I actually did 2 coats just to be safe. Next, I used Howard's Feed and Wax to hydrate all the wood on the insides of the dresser and dresser drawers. I think this is such a nice finishing touch for a piece of furniture. It makes the drawers slide so smoothly and look brand new. And next, I was ready to move it back into the shed to stage it and add the hardware. Seeing everything come together makes all this hard work so worth it. This finish and the inside of the drawers just really look phenomenal. I used antique gold rub and buff to create more of a brushed gold finish than shiny gold. I chose to use adjustable handles so that I didn't have to worry about drilling new hardware holes. These were actually super simple to use, and I ordered them on Amazon for pretty cheap. I didn't love these tiny knobs, so I ended up switching to something a bit more proportional. Now, don't forget what this dresser looked like before. Probably not worth the $70 I paid. But with a new base, new paint, and some new hardware, she looks like new money. If you enjoyed this transformation, please hit the subscribe button and consider following me over on Instagram. I post new furniture flips every week.